The meeting hall floated high above Velthros Prime, a massive station that housed the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Inside the Grand Chamber, representatives from 200 civilizations sat in their designated seats, waiting for the session to begin. The air hummed with translation devices, converting thousands of languages into comprehensible speech. Commander Vectress stood at the center platform, his forearms crossed behind his back in a gesture of confidence. The Creventhi were known throughout the galaxy as conquerors, and Vectress had personally led campaigns on 17 worlds. Today he would add another to his list. Honored council members, Vectress began, his voice amplified across the chamber. I come before you to request authorization for a resource extraction operation in Sector 447G. The system contains a yellow star with 8 planets. The third planet holds abundant water, rare minerals, and a breathable atmosphere. A holographic display appeared above the platform, showing a blue and green world spinning slowly. White clouds swirled across its surface. It looked peaceful, almost inviting. Counselor Mira, a thin creature with silver skin and large eyes, raised one delicate hand. Commander Vectress, our scans indicate intelligent life on this planet. What do your reports say about the inhabitants? Vectress smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The planet is inhabited by a species that calls themselves humans. They are primitive, Counselor. They have only recently developed nuclear fission. They possess no energy shields, no plasma weapons, and most importantly, no faster-than-light travel. They cannot even leave their own star system. Another counselor, a being made of crystalline structures, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. But they are space-capable. They have achieved orbit? Barely, Vectress said with a dismissive wave. They have small stations, simple satellites, and primitive rockets. Their military technology is laughable. They still use chemical propulsion and metal projectiles. Some of their nations still fight with handheld firearms that would not even scratch our armor. Admiral Torvin, an old warrior who had served the council for 70 cycles, leaned forward in his seat. Unlike the other counselors, Torvin wore his battle scars openly. His face was marked with old wounds, and his left eye had been replaced with a mechanical implant. Commander, have you reviewed the psychological profile of this species? Torvin asked carefully. Vectress pulled up another display. Yes, Admiral. The humans are divided into approximately 200 nations. They have fought thousands of wars among themselves. Currently, they are experiencing relative peace, but conflicts still occur regularly. They are violent, yes, but disorganized. They waste their resources fighting each other instead of unifying. That is not what I asked, Torvin said quietly. Have you studied how they respond to external threats? Vectress paused, clearly annoyed by the question. With all respect, Admiral, they have never faced an external threat. They have only fought themselves. When faced with superior technology and overwhelming force, they will do what every primitive species does. They will surrender. Mira spoke again, her voice gentle but concerned. Commander, I must note that the preliminary scans show something unusual. This planet has an abnormally high gravity compared to other inhabited worlds. The atmospheric pressure is elevated. The surface experiences extreme temperature variations. By our standards, this is what we classify as a high-stress environment. A death world, someone whispered from the back rows. Vectress laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the chamber. Counselor Mira, with respect, nearly every inhabited planet seems hostile to someone. The Creventhi homeworld would kill most of you within hours, yet we thrive there. Yes, this Earth has challenging conditions, but the humans have adapted. That does not make them dangerous. It makes them resilient at best. Admiral Torvin stood up slowly, his old joints creaking. I have seen this before, Commander. 60 cycles ago, we encountered a species on a similar world. They were primitive, divided, and seemed weak. An empire decided to claim their resources. He paused, looking around the chamber. That empire no longer exists. Neither does that species. They destroyed each other completely. Ancient history, Vectress said, though his voice had lost some of its confidence. The galaxy has changed. We have protocols now, proper subjugation procedures. The Creventhi Empire has successfully integrated 47 worlds into our territory. We know what we are doing. The debate continued for another hour. Some counselors argued for caution, suggesting first contact through diplomatic channels. Others worried about the ethical implications of invading a pre-FTL civilization. Vectress countered every argument with data, statistics, and military projections. Finally, the vote was called. The holographic display showed the results in real time. Green lights for approval, red for denial. Slowly, the lights appeared. Green, green, red, green, green, red. The chamber watched in silence as the count accumulated. The final result appeared. 127 in favor, 73 against. Authorization granted. Vectress bowed deeply. The Creventhi Empire thanks the Council for their wisdom. We will begin operations immediately. The extraction will be swift and efficient. Within one cycle, Earth's resources will be flowing to benefit the entire galactic community. As the council session ended and representatives began filing out, Admiral Torvin approached Mira in the corridor outside the chamber. "He is making a mistake," Torvin said quietly. Mira nodded, her large eyes reflecting sadness. "I fear you are right, old friend. But the vote has been cast. All we can do now is watch and hope we are wrong." "I have been a warrior for 70 cycles," Torvin said, staring at the holographic image of Earth that still floated in the empty chamber. "I have fought on 200 battlefields. I have learned to recognize certain signs." He turned to look at Mira. "Those humans divide themselves into nations and fight constantly, yes. But do you know what I see when I look at their military history?" "What?" Mira asked. "Practice," Torvin said simply. 10,000 years of continuous practice." Far away in the Sol system, Lieutenant Dai Jung sat at his monitoring station aboard the Korean Space Force platform. It was a quiet night shift, the kind where nothing ever happened. Earth hung below him, a beautiful sphere of blue and white. He sipped his coffee and checked the long-range sensor feeds out of habit. Then he saw something that made him freeze. His coffee cup floated away, forgotten as he stared at the screen. 300 heat signatures, 300 objects that should not exist. They were still far out beyond Neptune's orbit, but they were coming. They were coming fast. Daejung's hands moved across his console, activating emergency protocols that he had practiced 1,000 times, but never expected to use. Warning lights began flashing throughout the station. Alarms sounded on every military base on Earth. He opened the emergency channel that connected to every space station, every military headquarters, every government that had signed the Unified Defense Treaty. "This is Lieutenant Daejung, Korean Space Force of Station 7, he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I am declaring a code black. We have incoming. Unknown contacts 300 plus approaching from Galactic North. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." On Earth and command centers from Seoul to Washington to Moscow to Beijing, people rushed to their stations. Satellites turned their sensors outward. Weapon systems that had been in standby mode for decades hummed to life. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and that answer was coming with 300 warships. The Creventhi fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, like predators entering a hunting ground. 300 warships, each one larger than the biggest structure humanity had ever built in space, arranged themselves in a perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with exotic metals unknown to Earth science. Energy shields shimmered around them like soap bubbles in the darkness. Commander Vectress stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominant Will, and looked at the primitive system before him. He could see the small rocky planets close to the star, the gas giants further out, and there, that tiny blue dot, was Earth. "Send the standard message," Vectress ordered. "All languages we have on file." A communications officer, a younger Creventhi with only 2 battle scars, worked at his console. Moments later, a transmission beamed toward Earth at light speed. It would take hours to arrive, but Vectress was patient. He had done this 47 times before. On Earth, every radio telescope, every satellite, every listening station picked up the signal simultaneously. The message was clear and repeated in 47 languages, including Korean, English, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, and dozens more. "Attention inhabitants of the third planet. You have been selected for resource integration by the Creventhi Empire, under authorization of the Galactic Council. Your cooperation will result in minimal casualties. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. You have 12 of your hours to respond with your terms of surrender. This is your only warning." In the emergency command center deep beneath Seoul, General Hyunwoo listened to the translation with his senior officers. The room was silent when the message ended. Everyone looked at him, waiting for orders. 12 hours, General Hyunwoo said quietly. He was 58 years old and had served in the military for 40 years, but he had never imagined this moment. No one had. They give us 12 hours to surrender our entire world. Captain Hana, commander of the orbital defense platform Unity 7, appeared on the screen via video link. General, we have visual confirmation now. 300 ships. Our biggest station could fit inside one of them 20 times over. Can we fight them? Hyunwoo asked. There was a pause. Dr. Ye Jin, the quantum physicist who had designed Earth's experimental weapon systems, stepped forward. She was young, only 32, but she had been preparing for this possibility ever since the Unified Defense Treaty was signed. We can hurt them, she said carefully. Our railguns can accelerate projectiles to 30% light speed. That is faster than anything we have ever tested in combat. If their shields are designed for energy weapons like we think, the kinetic impact might penetrate. Might, Hyunwoo repeated. We have never fought aliens before, sir, Yejin said. We do not know what will work. Lieutenant Dai Jung, who had been transferred to the command center after his discovery, spoke up. General, I have been analyzing their formation. It is perfect, too perfect. They are arranged for intimidation, not defense. They do not expect us to fight back. Hyunwoo looked at the screens showing the alien fleet. He thought about the message, about the casual way they had demanded Earth's surrender. He thought about every war he had studied, every battle in human history. The victors were not always the ones with better weapons. Sometimes the victors were simply the ones who refused to lose. Send a response, Hyunwoo said. All frequencies, all languages. The communications officer looked nervous. What should it say, sir? Hyunwoo smiled, but there was no humor in it. 2 words. Leave. Now. The message traveled back through space at light speed. On the dominant will, Vectress received it and laughed so hard that his subordinates looked at each other in confusion. They said no, Vectress announced to his bridge crew. These primitives actually said no. They think their metal tubes and chemical rockets can challenge us. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their southern polar region. It is uninhabited according to our scans. Show them what real power looks like. 1 demonstration strike. The weapons officer hesitated. Commander, Admiral Torvin's warning. Admiral Torvin is old and sees ghosts in every shadow. Vectress snapped. Fire. A beam of concentrated plasma, enough energy to vaporize a mountain, lanced down from orbit toward Antarctica. The ice reflected the light like a mirror for one beautiful moment. Then every satellite in Earth orbit opened fire. The railguns had been hidden, disguised as communication satellites, weather stations, and research platforms. Humanity had built them in secret over 15 years. Ever since the first credible evidence of alien signals had been detected, now they revealed themselves. Tungsten rods, each one weighing 10 tons, accelerated to 90,000 kilometers per second. They were not explosive. They did not need to be. At that velocity, simple mass became a devastating weapon. The Kraventhi, shields designed to deflect energy weapons and explosive projectiles, did nothing against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The rods punched through shields like they were not there at all. 12 Kraventhi warships vanished in expanding clouds of debris. Just like that, in the first exchange, 12 ships that had conquered worlds simply ceased to exist. On the dominant will, alarms shrieked. Vector stared at his tactical display in disbelief. What just happened? He roared. Kinetic weapons, Commander, the tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. Solid projectiles at extreme velocity. Our shields were not calibrated for. They should not be able to. Return fire. All ships evasive maneuvers. But the human satellites were already dying. Plasma beams swept through Earth's orbital infrastructure like a scythe through grass. 30% of humanity's space assets were destroyed in minutes. Satellites exploded. Small stations broke apart. Debris filled the orbital space. But humanity's counterattack continued. The International Space Station, evacuated hours earlier, fired its maneuvering thrusters and aimed itself at the nearest Kraventhi ship. It missed. But the message was clear. Humans would weaponize anything. Captain Hana, aboard Unity 7, watched 3 of her sister stations die in flames. She gritted her teeth and activated her platform's main weapon, something the Kreventhi would not expect. A mining laser, designed to cut through asteroids, powerful enough to slice through metal like butter. Target their sensor arrays, she ordered. If we cannot kill them, we will blind them. The laser scored a direct hit on one Kreventhi ship, carving a glowing line across its hull. It did not destroy the ship, but sensors and communication arrays exploded along that line. Lieutenant Daejung, analyzing the battle from the ground, saw something in the chaos. General, their formation. When one ship is damaged, the others move to protect it. They have standard defensive patterns. Can we use that? Hyunwoo asked. Yes, sir. If we can predict their movements, we can set traps. Hyunwoo nodded. Tell Captain Hana. Tell everyone still alive up there. In space, Hana received the message. She looked at her tactical display, at the few remaining human assets still capable of fighting. Cargo ships that had been retrofitted with weapons. Private spacecraft armed with whatever could be mounted on them. Even a lunar mining vessel that had jury-rigged missiles from spare parts. All units, Hana broadcast. We are going to hurt them. We are going to make them regret coming to our home. The cargo ship Daejeon Hope, carrying nothing but rocks collected from the asteroid belt, accelerated toward the Kreventhi formation. When the aliens moved to intercept it, thinking it was a missile, the ship dumped its cargo. Thousands of rocks traveling at high velocity scattered across space. The Kreventhi ships flew directly into the cloud. Their shields stopped most of them, but the impacts created sensor noise, confusion. In that moment of chaos, the remaining human railgun satellites fired again. 4 more Kreventhi ships died. On the dominant will, Vectrus watched his perfect formation fall apart. He had lost 16 ships. 16. Against a species that could not even leave their own planet, Commander. His second-in-command said carefully, Perhaps we should withdraw and reassess. No. Vectrus slammed one of his 4 fists on the console. They are primitives using cheap tricks. We will crush them. Prepare for ground invasion. 50,000 troops, 5 major cities. We will break them on the surface. In the emergency command center on Earth, General Hyunwoo received the report. The aliens were preparing landing craft. Colonel Tae-min, commander of the ground forces in Seoul, appeared on screen. General, we are ready. Every building is a fortress. Every street is a killing zone. If they want our city, they will pay for every meter. Hyunwoo looked at the faces on his screens. Captain Hana in space, battered but alive. Lieutenant Dae-jung analyzing data. Dr. Ye-jin preparing her weapons. Colonel Tae-min ready to defend Seoul. And behind them 8 billion humans who now knew they were not alone, and that the universe had come to take their home. Make them pay, Hyunwoo ordered. The landing craft began their descent, burning through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. The invasion of Earth had begun. The Kreventhi landing craft touched down in 5 cities simultaneously. Seoul, Mumbai, São Paulo, Lagos, and New York. Each city received 10,000 alien troops, warriors who had conquered worlds and expected this to be another easy victory. In Seoul, Colonel Tae-min watched from his command post as the first craft landed in the Gangnam district. The massive ships crushed buildings beneath them, sending clouds of dust into the air. Ramps extended and the Kreventhi marched out in perfect formation. They were impressive creatures. Each one stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and armor that gleamed like polished obsidian. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. They moved with the confidence of soldiers who had never known defeat. Tae-min waited until they were 100 meters from their ships. Then he gave the order. Fire. The streets exploded. Buried charges that had been placed during the evacuation detonated in sequence, turning the perfect formation into chaos. Buildings collapsed inward, their supports cut precisely to fall on the alien troops below. The sewers erupted with flame as gas lines ignited, and from every window, every rooftop, every hidden position, humans opened fire. The Kreventhi had expected resistance. They had not expected this. Their armor could withstand plasma fire and energy weapons, but humans were not using energy weapons. They were using bullets, missiles, rockets, and anything else that could be thrown, launched, or fired. Sergeant Bora crouched behind an overturned bus, her rifle trained on a Creventhi warrior. She fired 3 shots. The first 2 bounced off the armor. The third, aimed carefully at a joint in the neck, found flesh. The alien went down. "Aim for the joints," she called to her squad, between the armor plates. Across the city, this lesson was being learned and shared. Humans adapted, communicated, changed tactics. What worked in one street was being tried in another within minutes. Social media, once used for entertainment and arguments, now carried combat information across the entire city. The Creventhi had never fought an enemy like this. On other worlds, primitive species fought in formations in organized units. Humans fought like water, flowing around obstacles, appearing where they were not expected, vanishing when confronted with overwhelming force. Private Minji, only 19 years old and fresh from basic training, found herself trapped in a subway station with 15 other soldiers. 200 Creventhi were advancing on their position. By every military doctrine, they should retreat or surrender. Instead, Minji pulled out her phone and started streaming. "My name is Minji. I am in the Gangnam station. If I die here, remember us. Remember that we fought." The stream went viral in seconds. Millions watched as the young soldiers prepared their defense. They had limited ammunition, no heavy weapons, and no way out. But they had something the Creventhi did not expect. They had an audience. When the aliens entered the station, they found every entrance booby-trapped. They found soldiers who did not run when overwhelmed, but instead fought harder. They found that humans would sacrifice themselves to damage just one more enemy. Minji's squad held that station for 72 hours. By the time reinforcements arrived, only 3 of the original 16 were still alive. Minji was one of them, covered in blood and dust, her rifle empty. But behind her lay 43 dead Creventhi warriors. She looked at her phone, still streaming, and spoke to the millions watching. "Gangnam Station is still ours. In Mumbai, the fighting was different but equally brutal. The Creventhi tried to use their energy weapons to clear buildings, but humans had prepared for this. They had evacuated through tunnels, underground passages that connected the entire city. When the aliens cleared one building, humans emerged from another. Dr. Ye-jin, monitoring the battles from a secure location, activated her experimental weapons one by one. The quantum disruption field she had spent 5 years developing went live over São Paulo. Every Creventhi communication device in a 100-kilometer radius went silent. Their tactical networks failed. Their coordination collapsed. In the chaos, human forces struck. In Lagos, chemical weapons were deployed, gases that the aliens' environmental suits had not been designed to filter. In New York, biological agents were released, viruses and bacteria that human troops had been vaccinated against but that ravaged the alien troops. The Creventhi called these tactics dishonorable, unfair, against the rules of civilized warfare. Humans called them effective. Above Earth, the space battle continued. Lieutenant Dae Jung had been promoted to commander after his tactical innovations saved what remained of humanity's orbital assets. Now he coordinated with Captain Hana to implement their most desperate plan yet. "They want our planet," Dae Jung said over the secure channel. "Let us give them a taste of it." Human ships, badly damaged and barely functional, dove into Earth's atmosphere. The Creventhi pursued, confident in their shields and superior technology. What they did not anticipate was that humans knew their own planet very well. The human ships used atmospheric skipping, bouncing off the upper atmosphere like stones on water. The Creventhi, with their more powerful engines, followed too closely and found themselves caught in Earth's gravity well. Their shields, designed for space combat, overheated in the thick atmosphere. 3 Creventhi ships burned up during re-entry, unable to escape. 2 more were damaged so badly that they had to retreat to orbit for repairs. Captain Hana, aboard her battered platform Unity 7, watched with grim satisfaction. "Commander Dae Jung, they are learning to respect gravity." "What next?" "Debris," Dae Jung said simply. "We turn everything into a weapon. Every destroyed satellite, every piece of destroyed station, every bit of human-made material in orbit was tracked and catalogued. Then, using precise calculations, that debris was pushed into orbital paths that would intercept Creventhi ships. The aliens found themselves dodging clouds of wreckage while trying to fight. On the Galactic Council station, the representatives watched the battle unfold through probe feeds. Counselor Mira covered her face with her delicate hands, unable to watch any longer. "They are destroying themselves," she whispered. "Both sides. This is madness." Admiral Torvin, however, watched with the eyes of a veteran warrior. "No, Counselor. This is war, real war. Not the limited engagements we have grown accustomed to, but total war. Humans understand something we have forgotten." "What is that?" Mira asked. "That sometimes survival requires you to accept any cost, any sacrifice, any horror. They are not fighting to win cleanly. They are fighting to hurt their enemy so badly that continuing becomes unbearable." On the dominant will, Commander Vectress reviewed his casualty reports with disbelief. He had lost 56 ships in space. On the ground, his troops were dying at ratios that should be impossible. 10 Creventhi for every 100 meters gained. 20 Creventhi for every strategic position captured. How? He demanded of his staff. How are primitives doing this? His tactical officer pulled up video feeds from Seoul. "Commander, they fight without honor. They use traps, ambushes, chemical weapons. They sacrifice their own people to kill ours. They do not form proper battle lines. They are everywhere and nowhere." Vectress watched footage of Sergeant Bora's unit. A small group of humans had rigged an entire building to collapse, killing themselves and 50 Creventhi troops. "They killed themselves," he said in disbelief. "Deliberately. It appears to be a common tactic, Commander. They call it acceptable losses." On Earth, General Hyunwoo coordinated the global defense from his bunker. Reports came in from every city. The news was bad. 200 million civilian casualties, 15 major cities heavily damaged. The aliens held strong positions in each invasion site. But the Creventhi were bleeding. They were learning what every conqueror throughout human history had learned. Humans were easy to defeat in open battle, but try to hold their land, occupy their cities, break their spirit, and you would find yourself drowning in blood. Colonel Taemin's forces retook Seoul block by bloody block. They did not accept surrender. They did not take prisoners in the heat of battle. They fought with a fury that terrified the Creventhi, who had expected rational opponents. In the Gangnam district, Sergeant Bo-ra led a team into a landed carrier ship. They did not try to destroy it with explosives. Instead, Dr. Yejin had given them something special, a computer virus on a simple data stick. Bo-ra fought her way to a terminal, plugged in the device, and uploaded the virus. Then she fought her way out, leaving behind a gift for the Creventhi. The virus did not destroy systems. That would be too quick, too merciful. Instead, it made things malfunction at random. Weapons fired late or not at all. Doors opened when they should be locked. Life support systems stuttered. Communication systems garbled messages. The virus spread through the Creventhi network like wildfire, ship to ship, carrier to carrier. Soon, the aliens could not trust their own technology. Commander Vectress stared at his malfunctioning displays and felt something he had not experienced in his 40 years of military service. He felt fear, not fear of death, but fear of failure, fear that he had made a terrible mistake. He opened a channel to the Galactic Council. "This is Commander Vectress. I am requesting immediate reinforcements. 50 additional warships and 100,000 troops." There was a long silence. Then Counselor Mira's voice came through, gentle but firm. "Commander Vectress?" Commander Vectress made his decision. If ground combat was too costly and space superiority too difficult, he would use the oldest tactic of conquest. He would break their will from above. He would show the humans what happened when they defied the Creventhi Empire. "Charge orbital bombardment weapons," he ordered. "Target their military installations across all 5 invasion sites. We will show them that resistance is futile." His weapons officer hesitated. "Commander, orbital bombardment of an inhabited world is classified as a war crime by the Galactic Council. We could face sanctions, even prosecution." Vectress turned to him with cold eyes. "We are already committed. Either we win decisively or we lose everything. We have lost too much to stop now. Fire when ready." On Earth, every sensor screamed warnings. The Creventhi ships in orbit were powering up weapons that had not been used yet. Energy signatures that could level entire cities. General Hyunwoo looked at the readings and knew what was coming. He had one option left. One final card that humanity had kept hidden. It was a card that, once played, could not be taken back. He picked up the red phone, the one that connected to every nuclear power on Earth. This is General Hyunwoo. Authorization code Alpha 77 Omega. I am activating Project Last Resort. Across the planet, in silos buried deep underground, in submarines hidden beneath the oceans, in secret installations that had existed since the Cold War, nuclear weapons came online. But these missiles were not aimed at Earth. They were aimed at the sky. Dr. Yejin's voice came through Hyunwoo's speaker, urgent and afraid. General, if we do this, the debris field will trap the Creventhi ships in orbit, but it will also trap us. We will not be able to reach space for decades, maybe longer. If they burn our world, Hyunwoo said quietly, we will not need to reach space. We will need to survive. Fire. 200 nuclear missiles launched from Earth, but they were not aimed at the Creventhi ships. They were aimed at humanity's own infrastructure, space stations, satellites, platforms, everything humans had built in orbit over 70 years. The Creventhi watched in confusion as the missiles destroyed human assets. They are doing our work for us, Vectress said, not understanding. Then Commander Dae Jung, still in orbit aboard a barely functioning command station, gave his final order. All remaining human craft, ramming speed. Target any Creventhi ship within reach. This is not a request. This is our last act. Make it count. Captain Hana aboard Unity 7 looked at her crew. They were young, so young. They had signed up to explore space, to push humanity's boundaries. Now they would die defending their home. She thought about her family in Busan, about the niece she would never see grow up, about all the tomorrows she would not have. It has been an honor, she said simply. Unity 7, along with every other human vessel still capable of movement, accelerated toward the Creventhi fleet. Some were destroyed by defensive fire. Some missed their targets. But some, like Unity 7, found their mark. Captain Hana's platform, traveling at maximum speed, struck the dominant Will's sister ship, the Eternal Conquest, at the base of its main engine. The explosion was visible from Earth, a new star blooming in the night sky. Both vessels were destroyed instantly. The nuclear detonations created expanding clouds of radioactive debris. Millions of pieces of wreckage, some as small as a bolt, others as large as buildings, filled Earth's orbital space. And they were all moving at deadly speeds. The Creventhi shields could stop energy weapons. They could deflect some solid projectiles. But they could not stop millions of pieces of debris simultaneously. Ships began taking damage from impacts. The debris clouds made navigation impossible. Ships that tried to leave orbit found themselves trapped by walls of moving wreckage. Humanity had created a cage around its own planet, and the Creventhi were locked inside it. Vectress watched his fleet become disabled, one ship at a time. His own vessel, the dominant Will, shuddered as impacts peppered its hull. Status report, he demanded. 17 ships destroyed, Commander. 43 damaged. We cannot leave orbit without risking catastrophic damage. We are trapped. On the ground, the fighting reached a new level of desperation. Colonel Taemin received word of the orbital situation and knew this was humanity's chance. The Creventhi could not call for reinforcements. They could not retreat. They could not even receive supplies from orbit. All units, Taemin broadcast. The enemy is cut off. They are alone on our world, surrounded by 8 billion angry humans. No mercy, no quarter. Take back our cities. Sergeant Bora's team had been fighting in the Seoul metro system for 3 days straight. They were exhausted, low on ammunition, operating on adrenaline and determination. When they heard Taemin's message, they found new strength. They emerged from the tunnels behind Creventhi positions. They coordinated with other units through civilian cell phones. They used the same social media that had once spread entertainment to spread tactical information. Private Min Ji, recovered from her injuries, fought alongside veterans now. She had stopped counting how many enemies she had killed. She only counted how many of her friends were still alive. The number got smaller every day. In one fierce battle near the Gangnam station she had defended before, Minji's squad was pinned down by Creventhi heavy weapons. They were going to die. She knew it. Her squad knew it. But Minji had learned something over the past days of fighting. Sometimes knowing you are going to die frees you to do impossible things. She grabbed every grenade she had, strapped them to her vest, and charged. The Creventhi were so surprised by this insane tactic that they hesitated. That hesitation cost them. Minji made it close enough before the grenades detonated. The explosion killed her instantly, but it also destroyed the heavy weapons position. Her squad, tears streaming down their faces, advanced through the gap she had created. They would remember Minji. They would tell her story, and they would make sure her sacrifice meant something. Dr. Ye-jin activated her quantum weapon at full power. She had been saving this, knowing it would burn out the system completely after one use. The quantum disruption field expanded across an entire continent, creating a zone where no advanced technology could function. Creventhi weapons failed. Their armors-powered systems died. Their communication went silent. They were reduced to fighting with nothing but their physical strength and whatever simple tools they could find. Humans who had trained for this possibility switched to their backup weapons. Simple firearms, no electronics, nothing that could be disrupted. The playing field was suddenly leveled, and humans knew how to fight when the playing field was level. Lieutenant Dae-jung, floating in the escape pod after his station was destroyed, watched through the small window as the battle turned. The Creventhi were losing, not because they were weak, but because they had underestimated their enemy so badly that recovery was impossible. On the dominant will, Commander Vectress received reports from the ground that made his blood run cold. His troops were being pushed back in every city. They were losing ground, losing soldiers, losing hope. The humans fought with a fury that defied all logic. He pulled up a communication channel that he had hoped never to use. "This is Commander Vectress to all Creventhi forces. I am ordering a general retreat to landing zones. Prepare for evacuation." It was the first time in Creventhi military history that those words had been spoken. Retreat, evacuation, defeat. On Earth, General Hyunwoo received the report. The aliens were pulling back. Humanity had won. But the cost, the terrible cost, was almost too much to bear. 200 million dead, 3 space stations destroyed, countless heroes like Captain Hana, who had given everything. The Galactic Council watched the retreat begin and sat in stunned silence. Counselor Mira wept openly. These primitive humans had defeated a military force that had conquered dozens of worlds. They had done it through sheer determination, tactical brilliance, and a willingness to sacrifice everything. Admiral Torvin stood up slowly. "I move that we classify Earth as an extreme threat level world. I move that we establish a quarantine zone around the Sol system. And I move that we place a warning beacon for any species foolish enough to approach." The vote was unanimous. Every single counselor voted in favor. Commander Vectress, as his damaged ships prepared to limp away from Earth, received one final message from General Hyunwoo. It was simple, direct, and terrifying in its implications. "Commander Vectress, you came to our home when we had no faster-than-light travel. You attacked us in our cradle. You saw us at our weakest. Remember that. Remember what we did to you when we were weak, and pray to whatever gods you believe in that you never see us again when we are strong." The message ended. The Creventhi fleet, or what remained of it, activated their damaged FTL drives and fled. Of the 300 ships that had arrived, only 73 limped away. The rest would become eternal monuments in Earth's orbit, wreckage that would be studied, reverse-engineered, and remembered. Humanity had survived first contact, and the galaxy would never forget. 5 years had passed since the invasion ended. Earth had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The debris field around the planet had become a permanent feature, a ring of wreckage that would remain for centuries. Some called it humanity's wall, others called it a graveyard. But everyone agreed that it was a reminder of what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge. Commander Dae-jung stood on the bridge of a ship that should not exist. The Terran Defense Fleet's first faster-than-light vessel hung in space, sleek and powerful. Its name was written in both Korean and English on the hull, Hana's Vengeance. The ship was built from reverse-engineered Creventhi technology, taken from the wrecks that floated in Earth's orbit. Dr. Ye-jin had spent 3 years figuring out how their FTL drives worked. Now humanity had that technology, improved and adapted for human use. "Navigation, status report," Dae-jung ordered. Lieutenant Jae-won, a young officer who had been just a child during the invasion, checked his instruments. "FTL drive is operating at full capacity, Commander. We can jump on your order." Dae-jung looked at his crew. They were young, all of them. The war had taken so many of the older generation. Captain Hana, whose sacrifice had inspired this ship's name. Sergeant Bora, who had died in the final push to retake Seoul. Private Minji, whose bravery had become legendary. And countless others whose names were engraved on monuments in every human city. Colonel Tae-min. Now General Taemin appeared on the communication screen from Earth. Commander, are you certain about this course of action? The Council has ordered us to remain quarantined. They quarantined us, General, Daejung replied. We did not agree to their terms. And I believe they have some explaining to do about why they authorized an invasion of our world. General Hyunwoo, now retired but still influential, appeared on another screen. He looked older, more tired, but his eyes still held the fire that had carried humanity through its darkest days. Daejung, when we sent that message to Commander Vectress 5 years ago, we promised we would see them again when we were strong. Are we ready? Daejung smiled. General, we built this ship in 5 years using technology we had to learn from scratch. We unified 8 billion people under one flag. We turned our grief into determination. We are not ready, sir. We are beyond ready. Then go, Hyunwoo said quietly. Make them understand. We are not asking permission to join the galaxy. We are informing them that we have arrived. Dr. Ye Jin, now the chief scientist of the Terran space program, ran final checks on the weapon systems. Commander, all systems are green. We have railguns, missile batteries, and energy shields based on Kraventhi design but improved. If they try to stop us, let us hope it does not come to that, Daejung said. But if it does, we know how to fight. In the crew quarters, young officers prepared for humanity's first faster-than-light journey. Among them was a young woman named Ji-woo, the niece of Captain Hana. She wore her aunt's old service badge, recovered from the wreckage of Unity 7. She had joined the Space Force to honor her aunt's memory, to finish what Hana had started. All hands, prepare for FTL jump, Daejung announced throughout the ship. We are about to make history again. The FTL drive hummed to life, bending space around the ship. For a moment, reality twisted in ways that human minds were not designed to comprehend. Then, with a flash of light, Hana's vengeance vanished from Earth orbit. On the Galactic Council station, alarms sounded. Admiral Torvin rushed to the sensor station. What is it? Are we under attack? The sensor operator, a young Silthene, looked up with wide eyes. Admiral, we have detected a faster-than-light signature entering this system. The origin point is, it is Earth. Torvin felt his heart skip. That is impossible. They do not have FTL technology. We confirmed that. They do now, sir, and the ship is broadcasting on all frequencies. Counselor Mhira joined Torvin at the sensor station. What is the message? The operator played it through the speakers. Commander Daejung's voice, calm and confident, filled the council chamber. This is Commander Daejung of the Terran Defense Fleet, aboard the vessel Hana's Vengeance. We come in peace, but we are very good at war. We believe the Galactic Council has some explaining to do about authorizing an invasion that cost 200 million human lives. We will be arriving at your station shortly. We look forward to a productive conversation. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded military action. Others called for diplomacy. A few simply sat in shocked silence. Admiral Torvin held up his hands for quiet. When the chamber finally settled, he spoke. 5 years. They learned faster than light travel in 5 years. It took my people 400 years. What do we do? Mhira asked, her voice shaking. We do what we should have done from the beginning, Torvin said. We talk to them. We apologize. And we pray they are feeling merciful. Hana's Vengeance emerged from FTL travel at the edge of the Council's star system. The massive station hung in space before them, home to the representatives of 200 civilizations. Weapons? Daejung asked. Multiple defense platforms, reported the tactical officer. Energy cannons, missile batteries, fighter craft. We are badly outnumbered, Commander. They outnumbered us before, Daejung said. It did not help them. But let us not start a fight. Open a communication channel. On the council station, the representatives gathered to watch as the human ship approached. It was smaller than most warships, sleek where Kraventhi vessels were bulky, elegant where other species built for pure function. It is beautiful, Mhira whispered. It is terrifying, Torvin corrected. That ship represents everything we fear. A species that learns quickly, adapts faster, and holds grudges. The human ship took up a position near the station, close enough to be present but far enough to avoid seeming aggressive. Then it just waited. Why are they not demanding entry? A counselor asked. Why are they not making threats? Torvin understood immediately. They are teaching us a lesson. They are showing us that they can be patient, that they can be civilized. That unlike us, they tried diplomacy first. The council hastily arranged a meeting. They prepared the Grand Chamber, the same room where Commander Vectress had presented his case 5 years earlier. But this time, the atmosphere was very different. Commander Daijung materialized in the teleporter bay, the first human to set foot on an alien station. He wore his Terran Defense Fleet uniform, simple and practical compared to the elaborate robes and armor of other species. He carried no weapons. He came alone. Admiral Torvin greeted him personally. Commander Daijung, I am Admiral Torvin. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you to this station. Daijung studied the old warrior for a moment. Admiral, I researched you during our journey. You voted against the invasion. You warned Commander Vectress. Why? Because I have seen this before, Torvin said quietly. I am old enough to remember the last time someone tried to conquer a Death World species. No one won that war, Commander. Everyone lost. Then why did you allow it? Because I was outvoted. Democracy is slow, even in the stars. They walked together to the council chamber. Every representative stood as Daijung entered. It was a sign of respect, but also of fear. Counselor Mira stepped forward. Commander Daijung, I am Counselor Mira. I also voted against the invasion. I wish to express on behalf of all peaceful species our deepest apologies for what was done to your world. Daijung nodded. I accept your apology, Counselor. But apologies do not bring back the dead. 200 million humans died. Our planet still bears the scars. And all of it was authorized by this council. It was a mistake, Mira said softly. A terrible mistake. It was more than a mistake, Daijung said, his voice hardening. It was an assumption. You assumed we were weak because our technology was primitive. You assumed we would surrender because we seemed divided. You assumed we were not worth considering as equals. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. You were wrong. About all of it. And now you have placed a quarantine around our system because you are afraid of what we might become. Can you blame us? A counselor called out. You defeated the Kraventhi Empire in weeks. You developed FTL technology in years. You weaponize everything. You never surrender. You are by any measure dangerous. Daijung smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Yes, we are dangerous. You made us that way. You showed us that the galaxy is not safe. That peace is an illusion. That the strong prey on the weak. So we became strong. We became very, very strong, Admiral Torvin spoke up. What do you want from us, Commander? Reparations? Punishment for those responsible? A seat on the council? All of that eventually, Daijung said. But first, I want you to answer one question. If we had been stronger when you found us, if we had FTL technology and weapons that matched the Kraventhi, would you have authorized the invasion? The chamber was silent. The answer was obvious to everyone. I thought so, Daijung continued. You respect strength. You respect power. You do not respect rights or sovereignty unless they are backed by force. So let me tell you what humanity has learned. We learned that the galaxy operates on one simple rule. The strong do what they will and the weak suffer what they must. That is a cynical view, Mira said sadly. That is a realistic view, Daijung corrected.